Welcome to the Roost. Some players love to create characters with as few flaws and as many strengths as possible, or min-maxing in the TTRPG sphere. With Daggerheart being a relatively new gaming system released last May, I wanted to explore a few character builds to see if I could make a broken Daggerheart character. Let's get to it! When thinking about how to min-max your character, every system will have its own traits or stats to consider. In D&D, these tend to be armor class, ability scores, damage output, and resistances. That's why you have people scanning the race or species list for ability score improvements and other abilities like fire or poison resistance, or characters looking for magic items like the Belt of Giant Strength to get their ability scores over maximum, or weapons that deal additional damage. It's even the case in the classic barbarian conflict between using a great axe to give the D12 damage die some love, versus using the statistically more damaging 2d6 greatsword. And it's truly incredible what people come up with. Between multi-classing spells, items, feats, and action economy, the builds range from intense to hilarious. I've seen a rogue roll a nat 1 and still get a 37 stealth check with just their bonus and the pass without a trace spell. I've seen monks get their armor class up to 22 without any armor. And honestly, these are the less creative builds. There are truly some wild ones out there and people are insanely creative. So in Daggerheart, what are the stats to look out for in min-maxing your character? There are a few places to look on your character sheet to see what's going to be the most useful. In terms of building a tank, you want to look at your stress, HP, and armor slots. Armor helps you reduce the incoming damage you take, HP increases the amount of damage you can take, and stress can be used in a variety of ways depending on your class. But many enemies chip away at stress, and once you use it up, those abilities start chipping at HP. Stress can also be used to change out your domain cards in the middle of a scene, which could come in clutch depending on what you have in your vault. But we'll get there in a moment. There is also your proficiency, which determines how many physical damage dice you deal, and your spellcasting ability, which determines how many magic damage dice you deal. Depending on your class, one may be more important to you than the other. Possibly the most unique resource that you'll want to consider is hope. You mainly get hope by rolling higher on your hope die than your fear die. There are many abilities that can expend hope, and enemies have abilities that can affect when and how your character can regain or use hope. So while it's a valuable resource, it's meant to be used, and being able to regain it quickly can allow your character to use various abilities more often. Finally, you have domain cards. These are extra abilities that everyone gets from different lists based on their class, the same way a D&D fighter gets second wind, but a monk gets deflect missiles, but both get an extra attack. The domain cards also include spells for druids, wizards, and other casters. While the maximum anyone can call upon at one time is 5, the remaining domain cards can be called from a player's vault by expending stress, so having more options at your disposal can be useful. That's a decision players have to make when leveling up. Do they want an additional domain card, more proficiency, or HP, or stress? Daggerheart min-maxing demands a focused, intentional build, taking all of this into consideration. Because there are so many choices, I'm going to explore some of the simplest ways to min-max these attributes, through domain cards. I may touch on a few ancestries or items, but the domain cards provide so many options for customizing your character that I really want to focus on these. So let's look at 2 classic min-max archetypes, and one that is more unique to Daggerheart. First up, the tank. I recently played a Daggerheart one-shot as a level 10, so max level, Guardian, and the Guardian Hope feature is ideal for a tank. It's even called Frontline Tank. You spend 3 hope to clear 2 armor slots. The class feature is also perfect, Unstoppable. It allows you to reduce the severity of incoming physical damage for a few turns. With the addition of a few key domain cards, you can really maximize the armor slots you have and your ability to reduce incoming damage. I played as a giant, which gave me an extra HP slot and weapon reach, but there are plenty of other ancestries that would be useful for a tank. Dwarves let you spend hope to half your physical damage and to mark stress instead of HP. Dracona can also mark stress like an armor slot to reduce the HP you take, and Simias gain an evasion bonus, which is basically a +1 to armor class. I went with the Stalwart subclass of Guardian, which gave me a bonus to my damage thresholds, which increased with the specialization and mastery cards that I got as I leveled up, and an opportunity to spend 2 armor slots rather than the usual 1 To reduce the incoming damage, I also had Fortified Armor, which let me mark an armor slot to reduce the HP I had by 2 instead of the normal 1. The combination was a little confusing, so the GM I played with ruled that I could pick either ability to use but couldn't use them both at the same time. But both options provide a great way to tank a lot of damage and come out standing. Specialization and mastery cards also gave me ways to move across the battlefield and take damage for allies, literally becoming an unbreakable damage sponge. But let's get into the domain cards, where it gets even wilder. I played as more of a damage dealing sponge, so I took the level 1 blade ability Not Good Enough, which let me reroll 1s and 2s on damage. I also took the Valor ability Forceful Push, which let me spend hope to make an enemy vulnerable, giving me advantage to all rolls against them. But since I ultimately went up to level 10, I kept this card in my vault for the most part, and since it has a 0 stress cost to pull it out, I could always activate it in a pinch if I needed it. Instead, I had Deadly Focus active, which let me focus fire one target in order to gain +1 to my proficiency against them for the battle, which meant rolling an extra damage die against them. There's also a card called Goad Them On, which lets you taunt a target to make them target you, at disadvantage. This is also a great choice for a tank, though I didn't take it. Some of the domain cards are a one-time use permanent bonus, like the blade card Vitality, which I chose to use. The bonus to HP and damage thresholds really helped boost my stats, and in the end, I had a severe damage threshold of 56, which is higher than some tier 4 enemies. I also took Battle Cry, which lets you and allies clear a stress, gain a hope, and gain advantage on attacks until someone rolls with fear. It's more of a support move than a tanky one, but to me, it was too good a card to pass up. At level 9, I took Gore and Glory, which let my crits and final blows to enemies give me extra hope or clear stress. And finally, to really maximize my armor slots, I took Unyielding Armor. Whenever I marked an armor slot to reduce the HP I lost, I could roll 5d6, and if any of them were a 6, I reduced the HP I marked by 1 without spending an armor slot. My armor and damage output were a fantastic combination, but there were other ways I could have leaned more heavily into the tank side rather than the damage side. There were also a few options I did take, but at higher levels of play, I put those into my vault. These included Fortified Armor, which would have increased my damage thresholds, Body Basher, which would let me add my strength to damage rolls, a little like D&D Rage mechanics, Lean on Me, a stress clearing card for me and an ally. I had armor, but it was in my vault, which let me repair mine and my allies' armor during downtime. And there was another option, Battle Hardened, which would have let me, like a 5e half-orc, drop to 1 HP instead of making it a death move. But basically what I'm saying is that even staying within one class, there are a dozen different ways to min-max your tank. Next up, the Heal Bot. The Seraph Hope and class abilities are already aligned with this goal. Spend 3 hope to clear a hit point for a close ally, and Paradise to reduce incoming damage or gain hope, which you can then recycle to clear an ally's hit point. Your prayer dice are limited, but that's just the start of the healing. As a Divine Wielder subclass, you have the Sparing Touch ability, which allows you to, once per long rest, clear 2 HP or stress from a creature. That increases to twice per long rest if you take the Specialization subclass card, as well as adding to your prayer dice, which lets you do that more often. So let's get into the domain cards. There are a lot of healing moves available to a Seraph, especially if you lean heavily into the Splendor domain. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I will point out a few that I think make the best combination. At level 1, you get Mending Touch, which allows you to spend 2 hope to clear an HP or stress. It takes a few minutes, and you can use role-playing to increase the ability. It's kind of like an as the GM sees fit sort of thing, to clear 2 hit points or stress instead of just 1. At level 2, also a Splendor move, there is Healing Hands, which you can make a successful cast to mark a stress and clear 2 HP or stress on a target, so it does the same sort of thing, and on a failure you only clear 1. You can only use it once per target per long rest, but that's still a substantial amount of healing. Although these cards are very similar, they do similar things, they do them in different contexts and with different limitations. At low levels, if you want to be a pure heal bot, you'll probably want both. At level 3, I would take 1 card from each domain. From Splendor, I would take Second Wind, which means that a successful attack means clearing 3 stress or an HP, Or, if you succeed with hope, you can do that on an ally once per rest. That's pretty powerful. I would also take the Valor Lean on Me, which, as I mentioned earlier, allows you to console or inspire an ally who failed to clear 2 stress for you both. Both of these abilities would be helpful, especially at lower levels. Lean on Me might actually be better because it restores both characters, and your party members may rely on abilities that require them to spend stress, and clearing that would be really helpful. Getting to more mid-level abilities, the Splendor ability Life Ward at level 4 allows you to spend 3 hope to basically cast Death Ward. You clear an HP of an ally instead of making a death move. And at level 5, the Valor ability Rousing Strike means that if you crit on an attack, you can clear an HP or 1d4 stress for everybody in sight or earshot. And you can only use that again once per rest, but that's a lot of stress or a lot of HP to be clearing. It does rely on a crit, so it may not be your best option, but if at low levels you're looking for a final healing card to fill out your vault, this could still be a good choice. Since you can only have 5 active domain cards, the best combination I see at level 5 is to have Mending Touch and Healing Hands, which do very similar things in different situations, Second Wind for more healing, Lean on Me to regain stress to spend on more healing, and Life Ward to protect allies. If you play as a Furbolg, you may be able to reduce the stress you're taking based on a luck roll, so Lean on Me may not be as useful, and you may want to branch out here, at least temporarily, into some shielding options that the Valor domain has, like I Am Your Shield, which lets you take an attack intended for an ally. There are some utility options as well, like Final Words, which work similarly to the Speak with Dead spell from 5th edition D&D. At higher levels, you can replace your active cards with higher level choices. I'd replace either Mending Touch or Healing Hands with Restoration, just because it provides more and more varied healing. Zone of Protection may have its uses, but it reduces damage, not the HP you mark, so I'd take other abilities like Shield Aura, which actually reduces the HP marked instead. Healing Strike gives anyone looking to heal while attacking a good option, and it's better than the earlier Valor option, Rousing Strike, because it doesn't require a crit. Finally, at top tier levels, Salvation Beam may be the best mass heal in the game right now, and Resurrection is the only spell that brings back the dead. At level 10, having the Valor ability Unbreakable could also be pretty cool, especially if you spend the stress to activate it from your vault and get multiple uses out of it. Nothing makes your character seem more godly than healing yourself at the brink of death over and over again.
You can't knock me down!
During leveling, I'd consider taking options that give you more stress, HP, and evasion, which makes you harder to hit. After all, you have to stay alive to keep healing your friends. So that's your heal bot. Finally, with Daggerheart's Hope resource being key to many of the abilities, features, and spells available to characters, I think there's also a way to maximize your ability to gain and use Hope. There are 2 main classes that focus on gaining Hope, but there's also one ancestry I want to point out here in particular, the Halfling. They have 2 features, both centering around the Hope resource. The first, Luckbringer, gives everyone in the party a hope at the beginning of a session, which just puts everyone in a better starting position to use their abilities that draw on hope, to help each other, and to be more versatile during the session. It also just feels good to gain a hope, literally making players more hopeful than when rolling with fear. It's one of my favorite parts about the Daggerheart system overall, just this feeling you get, like hoping that your dice roll well, looking for a good result, and that kind of sinking feeling when your fear die is higher. But I digress. The other feature is really what I want to highlight here, Internal Compass. It allows players to reroll 1s on the hope die, basically granting advantage. Now obviously you have to roll a 1 to activate it, but it's so cool. You not only have another shot to roll with hope, but also another opportunity to crit, which in Daggerheart is rolling the same number on the hope and fear die. Basically, halflings are luckbenders, but with more of an impact in my opinion than just re-rolling a 1 with the lucky feature that being a halfling in D&D gives you. Now for classes, there's only a few domain cards that really provide hope instead of relying on it to activate. I really thought a bard would be the way to go, but it turns out those cards are mostly high level ones. So being a low level bard doesn't really do much to become a hope bot, so to speak. The exception is Inspirational Words at level 1, which can be used to give an ally a hope a certain number of times per rest, but that doesn't really help with your own hope generation. The warrior class, however, with the blade and bone domains, has a few options that are more spread out over levels, so you can start generating hope at really level 2, and they affect both you and your allies. At level 2, the blade card Soldier's Bond allows you to give you and someone you talk to 3 hope once per long rest. That's a lot of hope, enough to do some serious damage with certain abilities or to make someone feel refreshed if they just can't get their hope die to roll high or can't replenish it on their own. At level 3, the bone ability Tactician allows you to roll a d20 as your hope die when helping an ally. Now maybe I'm doing my math wrong, but I believe that that's a 2 in 5 chance to roll higher than the highest you can possibly get on your fear die, which would give you hope back. And you're only at level 3. At level 5, the bone domain gives you a signature move, which also allows you to use a d20 hope die, though only once per rest. Moving up to some of the higher levels, the level 8 blade card Battle Cry clears a stress and grants a hope to all allies who can hear it. Now it's only once per long rest, but we're looking at one of the only features in the game that grants a hope. They really just want you to roll well, so this is a clear and obvious choice to take if hope generation is your goal. Finally, at level 9, the blade ability Guts and Glory gives you an extra hope both when you crit on an attack and when you deal a finishing blow against an enemy. With these abilities, your warrior can literally be a beacon of hope for your Daggerheart party. And there you have it, 3 min-max Daggerheart characters. Now there are plenty of other builds, like damage output for example, both physical and magical, and I didn't even touch on multi-classing. Maybe I'll cover that in another video. There are also other classes and domain cards that fit these same builds. Your heal bot doesn't have to be a Seraph. As a general disclaimer, I just want people to enjoy TTRPGs in a way that feels fun for you and your table. So these characters aren't meant to frustrate your GM or make the game feel easy. They're meant to explore the capability of the mechanics built into the system, and to test the boundaries of what's possible. So have fun, GMs and players both, testing these out. Let me know what domain cards you think make the most broken characters down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.